Stories are told, lessons remain. Welcome to the Talking Baobab, where truth is spoken and wisdom is shared.
Gather close, my friends, and let me tell you a story from the days when the baobab tree was young and wisdom was passed from mouth to ear like precious beads on a string. This is the tale of Kofi and Adjoa, a couple whose love was as strong as the mighty Volta River, but whose journey through life was as winding as the paths through the forest. It is also the tale of friendship, trust, and the lessons we learn when both are broken. A bird does not sing because it has answers, it sings because it has a song. And this is their song. In the bustling town of Kumosi, where the market never sleeps and the smell of wache and kelewele fills the air, there lived a young man named Kofi. Kofi was a hard-working man, a carpenter by trade, whose hands could shape wood into things of beauty, chairs that embraced you like a mother's hug, tables that stood firm like ancient trees, and doors that welcomed you home. Kofi had married his beloved Adjoa 9 years before our story truly begins. Oh, Adjoa! She was a woman of grace and strength, a seamstress whose fingers could make cloth dance and sing. Her shop on the edge of the market was always full of women seeking her skill with needle and thread. Their wedding day had been the talk of the town. The drums drummed, the dancers danced, and even the ancestors seemed to smile down from the heavens. When two elephants fight, the grass suffers, but when two elephants love, the whole forest rejoices. And truly, the whole town rejoiced for Kofi and Adjoa. In those early years, their home was filled with laughter. Kofi would come home from his workshop, sawdusty clinging to his clothes, and Adjoa would tease him, my husband. Are you a carpenter or a tree? You bring half the forest home with you. And Kofi would laugh and chase her around their compound until she squealed with joy. They went to church together every Sunday at the Assemblies of God, where Pastor Mensah would preach with a voice that could wake the dead and inspire the living. Their faith was strong, like the roots of the mahogany tree, reaching deep into the soil of their lives. But as the years passed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, something was missing from their home. Something that every couple in their community expected, something that brought questions and whispers and sometimes painful silence. They had no children. The hen knows when it is done, but it waits for the rooster to announce it. So says the proverb. And in the same way, Kofi and Adjoa knew the pain of childlessness, but they waited silently, hoping, praying, believing. At first, the questions from family were gentle, wrapped in concern like Kent cloth around a precious gift. When will we hear the patter of little feet? Any good news to share? Your mother is getting old, she wants to carry a grandchild before she joins the ancestors. Kofi and Adjoa would smile and say, in God's time, or we are trusting the Lord, or soon, soon. But as the years stretched on, the questions became sharper, cutting like a knife that has been sharpened once too often. Have you seen a doctor? Maybe you should try a different hospital. Perhaps you need deliverance prayers. Is there sin in your life blocking your blessings? Oh, my friends, if you have never felt the pain of empty arms when your whole body aches for a child, then you cannot know the weight that Kofi and Adjoa carried. It was like walking with stones in your pockets, invisible to others but heavy, so heavy. They visited hospitals, Ridge Hospital, Komfo Anikai, even traveled to Accra to see specialists. The doctor spoke in big words that sounded like incantations: motility, ovulation, fertility. They ran tests and more tests, poked and prodded, asked questions that made them feel like specimens under a microscope. Finally, one doctor, a kind woman with gray hair and gentle eyes, told them the truth: medically, there is nothing wrong with either of you. Sometimes, these things just take time. Or don't happen. But you are both healthy. The Creator knows why the crab has no head, Adjoa would say, quoting the old wisdom. Perhaps this is our path. But knowing didn't make it easier. Every baby dedication at church was a needle in their hearts. Every pregnancy announcement from friends and family was a reminder of what they didn't have. Every Mother's Day and Father's Day was a day of invisible grief. The spiritual warfare was intense. They fasted and prayed. They attended all-night vigils where the pastor would pray with such force that the walls seemed to shake. They gave testimonies of faith even when their hearts were breaking. They sowed seeds of offering, believing for their miracle. Pastor Mensah would lay hands on them and declare, "By this time next year, you will be nursing your child." And they would go home full of hope, only to have that hope deflate month after month like a balloon with a slow leak. But through it all, Kofi and Adjoa held each other. When the leg walks, it stands on the foot, the elders say. They were each other's standing place, each other's support. Now, my dear listeners, I must tell you about the dark season that came upon them. Depression, they call it, that heavy cloud that settles on the soul like harmattan dust, making everything gray and difficult. It crept up slowly, like a snake in tall grass. First, Adjoa stopped singing while she sewed. Then she stopped going to church social events. Then she stopped wanting to visit friends who had children. The laughter in their home became rare, like rain in the dry season. Kofi noticed. Oh, he noticed. He would come home to find Adjoa sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. He would try to cheer her up with jokes, with gifts, with tender words. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. And Kofi himself was struggling. The questions from his friends at the workshop were relentless. "Charlie, what is happening? 9 years and no child. Maybe you need some special herbs, boss. I know someone who can help. Are you sure your equipment is working properly?" This one would make them all laugh, but it cut deep. At night, lying beside his wife in the darkness, Kofi would sometimes pray silent prayers. "God, what are we doing wrong? Are we being punished? Please, show us the way." A single stick may smoke, but it will not burn, the proverb says. But Kofi and Adjoa were not single sticks, they were together. Yet even together, they felt the heat of their trial threatening to consume them. It was during this dark season that Kofi found a friend. Or rather, the friend found him. Her name was Afua. She was a member of their church, a single woman in her early 30s who sang in the choir with a voice like honey. Afua was friendly, always smiling, always ready with a word of encouragement. She started by approaching Adjoa after church services. "Sister Adjoa, I've been praying for you," she would say, her face full of concern. "I know this season is difficult, but God has not forgotten you." Adjoa, desperate for any word of hope, any show of support, welcomed the friendship. Soon, Afua was visiting their home, bringing food, helping Adjoa with her sewing work, praying with her. "You are such a blessing," Adjoa would tell her. "In this difficult time, God has sent you as an angel." If only she knew. Not all that glitters is gold, and not all that smiles is friend, the old ones warn. But Adjoa was too wounded to see. Afua was strategic, like a hunter who knows how to wait for the perfect moment. She would visit when Adjoa was at her lowest, offering comfort. She would listen to Adjoa's pain for hours, nodding sympathetically. She would hug her and say, "I understand. I truly understand." And slowly, Afua began to spend time with Kofi as well. It started innocently enough, or so it seemed. "Brother Kofi, Sister Adjoa told me you're having trouble with your shop's accounts. I studied accounting in school. Let me help you organize your books." Kofi, overwhelmed with trying to manage his business while supporting his grieving wife, accepted gratefully. Then came other offers. "Brother Kofi, I cook too much groundnut soup. Let me bring some to the workshop for you." "Brother Kofi, I'm going to the hardware store. Can I pick up those nails you need?" "Brother Kofi, Sister Adjoa is resting. Let me keep you company so you don't feel lonely." The fly that has no one to advise it follows the corpse into the grave, they say. And Kofi, lonely in his own pain, unadvised by wisdom, began to follow a dangerous path. Now, let me be clear, my listeners, Kofi loved his wife. He loved her with his whole heart. But even the strongest rope can fray if rubbed in the same place too often. And the rope of their marriage was being tested. The conversations between Kofi and Afua became longer, more personal, more intimate, not in body at first, but in emotion. She would ask him questions. "How are you really doing, Brother Kofi? Everyone asks about Sister Adjoa, but what about you?" And Kofi, who had been holding his pain inside for so long, trying to be strong for his wife, found himself opening up. Telling Afua things he hadn't even told Adjoa. Sharing his fears, his frustrations, his feelings of inadequacy. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for her," he confessed one evening as they sat in his workshop after hours, supposedly working on the accounts. "Sometimes I wonder if she would have been happier with someone else. Someone who could give her children." Afua moved closer, placing her hand on his arm. "Brother Kofi, you are a good man. A wonderful man. Any woman would be blessed to have you." The line between friendship and something more began to blur like watercolors in the rain. There was an evening when Adjoa had gone to her mother's village for a week to rest and clear her head. Kofi was home alone, and Afua came to check on him. They talked. They laughed. They watched television. And then, my friends, what happened next is the part of the story that breaks my heart to tell. But truth must be told, even when it is painful. The truth is bitter, but it is better than sweet lies. They drank palm wine that evening, too much palm wine. Kofi was not a drinker usually, but grief can make a man do things he wouldn't normally do. The wine loosened tongues and weakened resistance. One thing led to another. A touch became an embrace. An embrace became a kiss. And a kiss became, well, you understand. In the morning, Kofi woke with the worst hangover of his life, but not from the palm wine. From the guilt. From the shame. From the horror of what he had done. Afua was still there, and when she woke, she looked at him with eyes full of calculation, not love. "Kofi," she said slowly, "I think I might be pregnant." The words hit him like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. "What? How do you know?" "It was just last night." "I know my body," Afua said, and there was something in her voice, something triumphant, something that made Kofi's skin crawl. "And I'm late. I was going to tell you even before last night, but I wasn't sure. Now I'm sure." Kofi felt the world spinning. The frog does not run in the daytime for nothing, the proverb warns. And suddenly, Kofi realized, this had been planned. This had been a trap. Afua had not been his friend, she had been a hunter, and he had been her prey. For 3 days, Kofi could barely look at himself in the mirror. He went through the motions, worked in his shop, came home, smiled at Adjoa when she returned from her mother's village. But inside, he was dying. A basket cannot hold water, and a guilty heart cannot hold peace, they say. And Kofi had no peace. Adjoa noticed. Of course she noticed. She knew her husband like she knew her own heartbeat. "Kofi, what is wrong?" she asked one evening. "You've been acting strange since I came back. Are you ill?" "No, I'm fine," he lied, but his voice cracked like dry clay. "Don't lie to me," Adjoa said firmly. "We have been together too long for lies. What is it?" And so, with tears streaming down his face like rivers in the rainy season, Kofi told her everything. The loneliness. The conversations with Afua. The evening of drinking. The terrible mistake. And the claimed pregnancy. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Adjoa sat perfectly still, like a statue carved from stone. Her face showed no emotion, but Kofi could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, her breathing coming in short gasps. Finally, she spoke, and her voice was cold as the harmattan wind. "Get out. Adjoa, please. Get out." This time she screamed it, and her voice broke like a calabash dropped from a great height. Kofi stood, tears still flowing. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I love you. Please. If you love me, you will leave now. Before I do something I will regret. Go." And Kofi went. He spent that night at his workshop, lying on the floor amid wood shavings and tools, crying like a child who has broken his mother's favorite pot. Now, my dear listeners, this is where our story takes a turn. Because the antelope says that when the hunter is in the village, God is in the forest. And God was indeed watching. Afua, confident in her supposed pregnancy, began to spread the news, carefully, strategically. She told a few close friends at church. She began to show up at Kofi's workshop more often, playing the role of concerned future mother. But there was one problem: Afua was not pregnant. She had never been pregnant. It had all been a lie, a calculated deception to trap Kofi and break up his marriage so she could have him for herself. But the one who digs a pit for others may fall into it themselves, as the wise ones say. Afua's scheme began to unravel when she made a critical mistake. She told one friend that she was 3 months along. She told another friend she was 2 months along. And she told a third friend that she had just found out. The women in the church, who miss nothing, for women see what men look for, began to compare notes. And they went to someone who would know what to do, Mama Ekwa, the oldest and wisest woman in the church, who had seen 80 rainy seasons and knew every trick in the book. Mama Ekwa called Afua to her house one afternoon. "My daughter," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I hear you are with child." "Yes, Mama," Afua said, trying to sound joyful. "Then we must thank God. Come, let me pray for you and the baby." Mama Ekwe reached out to place her hand on Afua's belly. But Afua pulled back instinctively, and in that moment, Mama Ekwe saw the truth in her eyes. "There is no baby, is there?" Mama Ekwe asked quietly. Afua's face crumbled. And then, like a dam breaking, everything poured out: her jealousy of Adjoa, her desire for Kofi, her plan to seduce him, the lie about the pregnancy. All of it. Mama Ekwe listened without interrupting. When Afua finished, the old woman shook her head sadly. "My child," she said, "you have planted thorns expecting to harvest roses. The one who follows a beast into the forest should not complain about the branches. You have followed evil into the forest, and now you are caught in the branches of your own deception." Mama Ekwe did what had to be done. She called for a meeting: Kofi, Adjoa, Afua, Pastor Mensah, and the church elders. It was held in the church meeting room on a Tuesday evening, with the setting sun casting long shadows through the windows. Afua was forced to confess everything in front of them all. There was no pregnancy. There had never been a pregnancy. It had all been a manipulation to destroy Kofi and Adjoa's marriage. The shock on Kofi's face would have been comical if the situation weren't so tragic. Relief and anger word on his features, relief that there was no pregnancy, anger at the depth of Afua's deception. But when he looked at Adjoa, hoping to see relief in her eyes too, he found only cold stone. Because an egg that is broken cannot be made whole again, even if we discover it was broken on purpose. "I am sorry," Afua wept. "I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I was jealous. I was lonely. I made terrible choices. But truth must be told, even when it is painful. The truth is bitter, but it is better than sweet lies." They drank palm wine that evening, too much palm wine. Kofi was not a drinker usually, but grief can make a man do things he wouldn't normally do. The wine loosened tongues and weakened resistance. One thing led to another. A touch became an embrace. An embrace became a kiss. And a kiss became, well, you understand. I am sorry, Afua wept. I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I was jealous. I was lonely. I made terrible choices. You tried to destroy my marriage. Adjoa finally spoke, her voice shaking with rage. You pretended to be my friend. You prayed with me. You comforted me. All while planning to steal my husband. What kind of person does that? Pastor Mensah spoke up then, his voice heavy with disappointment. Afua, you must leave this church. You cannot remain here after what you have done. Perhaps in another fellowship, with time and genuine repentance, you can find healing. But here, you have broken trust that cannot be easily repaired. Afua left that evening in shame, her head bowed, her deceit exposed to the light like a snake brought out from under a rock. But that didn't solve Kofi and Adjoa's problem. Because while Afua had lied about the pregnancy, the betrayal was still real. The adultery had still happened. The trust had still been broken. What followed was what Pastor Mensah called the desert season, a time of wilderness wandering for both Kofi and Adjoa. Adjoa blocked Kofi from everything: his phone, his social media, his attempts to visit the house. She refused to see him, to speak to him, to acknowledge his existence. The pain was too fresh, too raw, like a wound that hasn't even begun to scab over. The pot that cooks the food knows nothing of hunger, she told her sister when asked if she was being too harsh. Kofi knew what he was doing. He knew what it would cost. Let him feel the cost. Kofi moved into a small room behind his workshop. Every day was agony. He had lost not only his wife but also his reputation. The church people whispered. The workshop customers looked at him with judgment in their eyes. Even his own family was ashamed. His mother came to visit him one day, her face lined with sorrow. "My son," she said, "what have you done? 9 years you have been married to that good woman. 9 years. And for a moment of weakness, you throw it all away." "Mama, I know. I know. I was foolish. I was stupid. I was." "You were a man," his mother interrupted. "And men can be the biggest fools when they think with their bodies instead of their heads. But now you must be wise. The lizard that fell from the tall tree said it would praise itself since nobody else would. Nobody will praise you now, my son. You must rebuild your life stone by stone, starting with yourself." And so Kofi began the hard work of rebuilding. He stopped trying to contact Adjoa directly. Instead, he went to counseling with Pastor Mensah. He attended a men's accountability group. He read books on marriage, on faithfulness, on healing from betrayal. He wrote Adjoa letters, not begging her to come back, but expressing his remorse, his understanding of the pain he caused, his commitment to becoming a better man regardless of whether she ever forgave him. He didn't know if she read the letters, but he kept writing them. Meanwhile, Adjoa was fighting her own battle. The depression that had been lurking at the edges of her life now rushed in like a flood, threatening to drown her. She stopped going to church. She couldn't face the whispers, the pitying looks. She stopped walking. Her hands couldn't sew when her heart was in pieces. She barely ate, barely slept, barely lived. Her sister, Oma, moved in with her to make sure she didn't do anything harmful to herself. And it was Oma who finally sat Adjoa down and spoke truth to her. Listen to me, sister. What Kofi did was wrong. Terribly wrong. He betrayed you in the worst way. You have every right to be angry, to be hurt, to be broken. But the one who lies on thorns cannot sleep peacefully. This anger is destroying you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? Adjoa whispered. He broke my heart. Yes, he did. But you get to decide if you stay broken. You get to decide if you let this define you. You get to decide if you want to try to heal the marriage or end it. But what you can't do is stay in this in-between place, this purgatory of pain. It's killing you. Those words planted a seed. A seed does not grow in a day, but it must be planted to grow at all. Slowly, very slowly, Adjoa began to heal. She started seeing a Christian counselor who specialized in betrayal and trauma. She started journaling her feelings. She started going back to church, not to the big service where everyone could stare, but to the early morning prayer meeting where only a few dedicated souls gathered. And one day, 6 months after everything fell apart, she decided to read one of Kofi's letters. Then another. And another. She saw a man who was truly repentant, not just sorry he got caught. A man who was doing the work to understand why he had made such a terrible choice. A man who was committed to being better. The tree that bends with the wind survives the storm, the elders teach. And Adjoa began to wonder if perhaps there was a way to bend without breaking completely. The reconciliation didn't happen overnight. Oh no, my friends. Rome was not built in a day, and neither is trust rebuilt in a day. It started with a meeting in Pastor Mensah's office, with the pastor and a counselor present. Kofi and Adjoa sat on opposite sides of the room, barely able to look at each other. Third lesson: betrayal is possible, but so is healing. If Kofi and Adjoa's story teaches us anything, it's that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, work, and commitment. But healing requires honesty, repentance, and consistent action to rebuild trust. Fourth lesson: depression and pain make us vulnerable. Kofi and Adjoa's childlessness created a vulnerability that Afua exploited. In your times of weakness, be extra careful about who you let close to you and what choices you make. Fifth lesson: God's timing is perfect, even when we don't understand it. Adjoa and Kofi's baby came exactly when it was meant to come, not before, when their marriage wasn't ready to handle the stress, but after, when they had built a stronger foundation together. Sixth lesson: the one who confesses is halfway to forgiveness. Kofi could have hidden his sin. But by confessing, By taking responsibility, by doing the hard work of change, he opened the door to healing. The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. Final lesson: trust is like a mirror. Once broken, you can put it back together, but you still see the cracks. Adjoa chose to rebuild trust with Kofi, but she never forgot what happened. The scars remained, but they became part of their story, reminders to be vigilant, to communicate, to protect their marriage. Today, Kofi and Adjoa live in Kumasi with their daughter Omenayara. Their marriage is stronger than it was before, not because of the betrayal, but because of the work they did to overcome it. Kofi still makes furniture, and Adjoa still sews beautiful clothes. But now, they have a little helper who likes to play with fabric scraps and wood shavings. They still go to church every Sunday, where they share their testimony when asked, not hiding their past but not dwelling in it either. They counsel other couples facing betrayal, offering hope that healing is possible. As for Afua, I hear she moved to another city and joined a different church. I hope she found healing too, for even the snake that bites deserves to have its wound healed. But that is another story for another day. The storyteller speaks, and the story ends, but the lessons remain. May your marriages be protected. May your friendships be true. May your trust be earned and kept. And may you remember, the darkest night can still end in the brightest dawn. This is the tale of Kofi and the broken trust. I have told it as it was told to me. Now I pass it to you. Yen era yen, we are all in this together. May you go forth with wisdom, and may your paths be blessed.
If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more African folktales and wisdom-filled stories.